attention. We have a dynamic panel of leading experts in the field that are leading experts in the field that are going to talk to us a little bit about workplace and moving beyond compliance, what that looks like. And so I have the incredible pleasure of being joined today by three individuals that I will just have a chance to introduce right now. Jason Mon is the commissioner for the Utah Labor Commission, and that is a role that has served in since 2016. Maria Fernanda Gomez Contreras oversees the protection department of the Mexican consulate in Salt Lake City. And Anita Watson is the claims team manager for Liberty Mutual and has a 10-year career working in the workers' compensation insurance industry. So the way that we're going to structure our discussion today is that we'll have some prepared questions, but we do want to invite you to be able to engage us in this. If there is something that you would like to ask, after you hear one of the panelists' response, we welcome those questions. We also have some time at the very end for Q&A. So to start off, I would like to ask for each of our panelists to tell a little bit about themselves, their roles, how their initiatives and their professional capacity touches on issues of safety in the workplace every single day. So I'd like to start with Anita, followed by Commissioner Mon, and then Maria Fernanda. So Anita.
Hi everyone and welcome. Again, my name is Anita Watson, and actually Jason and I go back. Jason was the deputy commissioner at the time that I began my career at the Utah Labor Commission. That's how my career started in workers' compensation. So it was really under Jason's leadership that gave me the opportunity to begin on this crazy workers' compensation world. And if you are part of this workers' comp world, it's crazy. And basically, so my career started in the regulatory agency. My particular department, we oversaw the Workers' Compensation Act and ensuring that employers were reporting workers' compensation claims here in the state of Utah. And if they were not, we would reach out to them, find out what was going on. And then we would also work with a lot of stakeholders involved in the workers' compensation claims process. So medical providers, attorneys, just everyone who really had a stake in the workers' compensation world and really who had obligations to abide by state regulatory statutes. I became really passionate about it because we have this incredible industry here in Utah. We have incredible employees dedicated to work here in Utah. And from every background and facet in education and socioeconomic background. And I felt like I was also part of that industry. I was the working class of Utah. And so I just was so passionate about it, I kind of continued on into my career. And so I then made the transition to going from the regulatory agency, started working in workers' compensation and the insurance end of things. So which brought me to working with Liberty Mutual. And so my team administers workers' compensation claims. So we deal with risk and we deal with ensuring that we are assisting with return to work for injured workers. We pay indemnity benefits. We work with our nurse case management staff. So we do just everything involved with the claim process from beginning to end. And yes, that was includes litigation. And it's been my world for the past 12 months. And just really happy to be part of this industry, so I'm part of this industry, right on. Stay in there, hang on top, because it's very unique, and I appreciate the work that you're doing.
Thank you so very much, Anita. So Commissioner Mon, tell us a little bit about you and how do you interface with issues of workplace safety?
All right, thanks, Anita. Hello, everybody. Jason Mon, Utah Labor Commission. I've been the commissioner since 2016. Prior to that, I was the deputy commissioner and general counselor from 2013 to 2016. We also, at the Labor Commission, pretty much everything we do revolves around workplace safety. One degree or another. We obviously enforce the Occupational Safety and Health Act in the state of Utah. We're a UWASH. We also enforce the Workers' Compensation Act for the state of Utah. By that, I mean making sure that employers are carrying workers' compensation coverage in the appropriate amounts. We also help injured workers and carriers and employers resolve workplace injury claims. We have an adjudication division that hears, in the majority cases, they hear workers' compensation disputes. Judges that are out right in our office and they hear those disputes. We also hear some UWASH disputes as well when we decide an employer and the employer contest that citation. My involvement in the area actually goes back prior to the commission. In another life, I represented as an attorney employers who have been investigated and cited by UWASH. So I have some experience on the other side as well. And that's mainly my experience in workplace safety, with pretty much everything we do. So
thank you so much, Commissioner. I know that we're going to dive a little bit more into the details around what does the commission offer for employees and employers who are interested in not only learning rights, but also the type of trainings. And so thank you so much for being with us. Maria, now that I'd like to turn to you. So for folks that are not familiar with your role, who you are, what you offer, tell us about your
Hi, everybody. First of all, I want to thank the invitation in the name of the head consul of the Mexican consulate. Well, my name is Maria Fernanda, as Nuria said, and I'm the head of the protection department in the Mexican consulate. In our department, we, as the name said, we help Mexican citizens in almost everything they need. I know that much of you don't have any information about our consulate, but in this department, we try to help in all matters like people that are victims of some crimes, victims of work stuff, victims or sexual assault or stuff like that. We help Mexicans in economic need, and we have a lot of resources for especially Mexican citizens. I know that I saw familiar faces, but I know that more we help Mexican citizens, but that doesn't mean that we don't have any other resources for another Hispanic people. So I will talk more about this, but that's most of my work.
Well, thank you so much, Maria Fernanda. So we will be diving into some very particular conversations regarding vulnerable workers. So we'll talk a little bit more about women, migrant and immigrant laborers, as well as those that are underage. So that's going to be one of our next topics. But first off, let's set the tone and understanding, Commissioner Mon. When we were preparing for this call, we used the word safety often. But you warned us that it was really important for us not to conflate safety and harassment. Can you tell us why it's critical that we know the difference between the two? And really, the fact that there's different protections for both.
Certainly, thank you. Thanks for circling back to this from yesterday. So it's important we don't conflate things like employment discrimination and workplace safety. Sometimes they have about a safe workplace, and we try to conflate everything. It means physical safety, it also means safety, to be yourself and free from discrimination. They're actually two separate rights. The Labor Commission, we actually enforce both of those, obviously workplace safety through UWASH, and then we also investigate claims of workplace discrimination through our UALD division, that's Utah Anti-Discrimination Labor Division. And so that's a division that looks at claims of discrimination, harassment, that sort of thing. It's important that as employers and people who represent employers, you understand those are two distinct rights. People are entitled to a safe workplace. That's a right we all have. Free from physical harm, free from recognized safety standards. We're also entitled to a workplace free from discrimination. And that's a separate right we have. And so it happens all the time. Someone may find themselves in a workplace that's very safe and meet all safety requirements. It's a great place to work from a safety standpoint, but it might not be a great place from a discriminatory or harassment standpoint. Obviously, also might be a great place to work. Everyone gets along, everyone's treated equally. There's no discrimination, but it has some significant safety hazards there. So it's important as you're here, you're representing employers and some of our maybe employers. It's important to understand those are two separate rights. Everyone's entitled to those two rights, and just make sure you're providing both.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. And especially this is relevant because the title of our conference, our panel, is Workplace Safety Beyond Compliance. And so we're really asking for employers, for industry leaders to think about safety from the lens of the employee's well-being, but that means making sure we understand the difference, that there is safety precautions, right, and practices to make sure that people are physically safe to successfully complete their job, but then there's also workplace culture. So again, feel free to ask questions if there's any type of misunderstanding, or if you'd like to dive into that a little bit more. So Commissioner Monk, I do want to stay with you for the next question. We just mentioned overall well-being of the employee. And then we also talked about how there are unique concerns faced by certain workers in our industries. I want to start with underage and minors. What are the unique concerns faced by this particular population in the workplace? And are there any challenges that they face in submitting claims if in fact they don't?
Thank you. Yes, there are a number of unique challenges for your employee minors. First of all, it's important to understand and remember that workplace safety comes to everyone on the job site. It doesn't matter if it's an older employee or a minor employee. The same standards apply across the board. When you're employing minors, you need to remember that under 16 have certain limitations in hours they can work, and when they can work, and all minors have limitations in the kind of work they can do. Minors in particular is working in hazardous occupations. That's mining, that's manufacturing, using heavy equipment, that sort of thing. Utah law provides that minors are prohibited from engaging in hazardous occupations as defined by the U.S. Department of Labor. And the Department of Labor has about 17 hazardous occupations that minors nationwide in Utah are prohibited from working in those areas. So keep that in mind as you ask. A unique challenge is also you have to train new employees, right? But you really have to train minors. Quite often it's not their first job. They need to understand where in the workplace is safe for them to be, where in the workplace they shouldn't be, what equipment they shouldn't be using. Unfortunately, we've seen some pretty tragic accidents involving minors when they're in an area or accessing a piece of machinery that they're not supposed to be there to access. Quite often, we've had one instance where it's just kind of curiosity. The minors want to know what that machine did. Another one, minor was cleaning there and didn't know, wasn't aware not to interact with that machine, but did, some horrific injury from that. So just keep that in mind as you're working with young workers, with minors. They've got to be trained. Along the same lines, as far as challenges that they face if they are filing claims or if they're injured at work. Remember, these are kids, and kids don't know what they don't know, right? They don't know what to do if they're hurt at work. They certainly don't want to file anything if they're hurt at work. That should be part of the training when you bring a minor on to your staff. Train them what their expectations are if they're hurt, what you expect from them as the employer. Quite often, you will not report an injury because they don't want to lose their job. They don't want to upset the employer. They don't want to make waves. I think we all know teenagers in our lives, and sometimes they won't take what's on their mind no matter what. The same thing can apply in our lives. So make sure that all employees, especially minors, understand if you're hurt, it's okay. You need to know about it. It's okay to file your claim. It's okay to file your injury report, and that's expected. And as a workplace, as an employer, that's what we expect.
Thank you, Commissioner. Do you by chance, is there any best practice around even the language, in the plain language? There's some types of trainings that have a lot of legalese. But we know with a 16-year-old, a 17-year-old, some of those things might be too technical. They won't raise their hands. They won't say, wait, can you explain that? So what's a best practice employers can have in making sure that even the training is accepted?
Best practices is certainly don't have your training just be written in full legal. You don't have to practice it and understand this, memorize this. Okay, you need to communicate with them and tell them verbally what your expectations are. That is the best practice.
Well, thank you so much. So speaking of, again, accessibility, now I'm going to turn to you, Maria Fernanda, to talk about what are some complications and unique barriers that our migrant and labor and immigrant laborers are experiencing in the workplace. So talk to us a little bit about what you're hearing, seeing, and what are the challenges for them to submit claims.
All right, perfect. I'm going to read a little bit because as you can hear, my English is a little bit rusty. But the main concern that we have in the Mexican consulate is the work space is immigration steps. A lot of Mexicans don't have any papers, and that's a big problem for them because they sometimes misunderstand, and they think that because they don't have any papers or legal papers, they feel like they doesn't apply for having the rights. I mean, it leads many to be doing that because they have a visa or a work permit and not sufficient. They are immediately disqualified from equal resources. So that's a really big concern for us as a consulate and for us as Mexicans. They tend to suffer a lot of problems in their works. And then they came with us and they tell us like, oh, I suffered some problem like 3 years ago, and I didn't make a plan because I thought I would come for me, or that I don't have any right to pursue any problem. So that's the biggest concern for us, for the consulate, and for our citizens.
Well, and I think it's really important for us to know, however, that when we're talking about migrant laborers, we're also including individuals that have legal rights to work in the state, but sometimes they don't know that they are protected under laws. And Commissioner Ron, I'm just going to turn to you really quickly. Tell us about status, no status. What are the rights for individuals in the state?
Rights for individuals in the city. If you're in the workplace working, it doesn't matter to us what your status is. You're entitled to the same rights, the same protections as everybody else. And that has, whether that's workplace safety, whether that's discrimination, you're entitled, or whether that's receiving wages for your work, entitled matter, you're entitled to the same rights. And so we try to get that message across. It doesn't matter your status, you're still entitled to the same protections as everybody else in the state.
Well, and really this goes back to this idea of we just want to be able to create great workplace environments where everyone knows and trusts the employers are looking after them, right? Create brand loyalty, create loyal, committed employees, and so safety is a huge concern, so they have to clarify that. Now I want to turn to Anita. Anita, we mentioned minors, we mentioned migrant laborers, now I want to talk about women. What are some of the unique concerns that are faced by the population and some of the concerns and barriers to submitting claims?
I think there's definitely some crossover in regards to minors or immigrant or migrant workers in regards to challenges that have been facing in the workforce. I think quite often, depending on industry, right? A lot of service industry, depending on the type of work, you will find harassment, whether sexual harassment. You will sometimes find not just sexual harassment within the workplace, but depending on the type of work, it could be even not necessarily directly within an industry, but the customer that they are servicing within the industry. This tends to happen within hospitality quite often. And I also think with women, a lot of women these days will find, and I don't want to just say women, but we're finding that we have a lot of employees who are working 2, 3 different jobs. And there's a lot of balancing acts and trying to commit and fulfill challenging schedules. And quite often we'll find sort of cases in regards to retaliation if you are not willing to commit to a certain schedule or achieve the schedules. And as you know, Utah is an at-will state. And so there's going to be definitely some challenges. I think what is motivating to me, especially in being here in the Utah Safety Council, because as you know, a lot of industries, whether it's construction, whether it's in engineering fields, it's been primarily dominated by men. But even seeing the women that are represented here, I'm seeing a lot more, women driving lawn and haul drivers. We're seeing a lot more women in engineering, IT, and different industries. And so that is exceptionally motivating, but yeah, there's going to be challenges, I think, as women progressively continue to move on in the workforce. But like I think in all of these different subsets, there's something going to be crossover, whether it's specific or in direct or indirect. I think as employees And as an employer, you need to know your rights, your responsibilities, and that goes both ways. And I commend the Labor Commission because I was part of that. I was part of that outreach. There's so many resources on the website. There are forums you can download. The Mexican Consulate's office, I have worked with them since 2015 in regards to providing resources and information. So there are a lot of resources within the state of Utah that if you are an employer or you're in a position of leadership, seek that information out as to how you can help educate your employees. Because a better educated employee is really a better employee overall for you. And so I think that's the overall message.
Thank you so much. So Anita, I want to stay with you a little bit longer on this issue, but especially many of you may or may not know, but in the state of Utah right now, we have 2.2% unemployment rate. I mean, it's phenomenal where we are. But that also means that as employers who are looking and seeking for bodies to be able to complete the job and stay on task and be able to stay competitive, we're looking for a diverse workforce. So women, minors, elderly and aging individuals, right? We've got a very diverse population that is looking to re-enter the workforce. So I would welcome any and all thoughts, but Anita, tell us, especially as it relates to women, you noted on harassment. What are the implications for a company that doesn't take it seriously, particularly as it relates to liability, because you did mention litigation at the beginning, and what can we do to strengthen workplace cultures for everyone, men, women, any and all backgrounds can be safe, right? Safe from harassment. You see that, Commissioner? I'm not sure clarify.
No, Jason yesterday really eloquently defined both, and I think the message he, as he said, you can have the safest work environment in regards to making sure your team has PPE with the safest equipment, safeguard all of these, but someone may not feel safe as an individual working in that workplace. I don't know if anyone here is from risk management or in human resources, but if you are, you can imagine the implication in regards to workplace harassment. Litigation is real. Jason's background and Chris, the Deputy Director of the Labor Commission, they both have backgrounds in legal backgrounds, and so you're not just dealing with safety in regards to a safe work environment, whether it's emotional, physical, or in, like we were saying, safety in regards to making sure at the safety level of the ocean people, right? But safety in regards to, am I safe as a woman to come into this workplace? And I think that is anyone who is, whether you're in a role of leadership, direct leadership, if you're a direct team lead, a direct supervisor, you need to take these situations exceptionally seriously. You need to find out what is happening, and I would recommend, and again, I'm going to subtract the word should. I would recommend that you really look into, what does my business, what does my employer, what is our process in regards to reporting these situations? How do we protect the employee? How do we investigate? How do we process information? And how do we ensure that we are protecting everyone engaged? Because there are implications for not addressing these concerns. And they could be legal implications. I mean, it goes into employment law. It can, the risk can go on and on and on and on. So yeah, I just believe that if you are in a role of leadership and you haven't asked these questions, if I were to be approached by someone on my team or someone who is underneath my region or what have you, what would I have to do? What is required of me? I don't know that many of us could answer that. And I believe that if you are in a role of leadership, you should know that. Just like you should know if an injury were to happen, do you know what is your reporting process? Do you know who your insurance carrier is? Do you know where to send an injured worker to seek treatment? So if you don't know these things, I would recommend that you find out. It is valuable. These are our employees. They're providing a value to us. They're an asset.
Commissioner Mon, again, I know that you've done a lot of work around some of these areas and topics. So anything you'd like to add here?
Yeah, I'll just add this. It's the right thing to do to have a place that's free of workplace hazards and free of discrimination. It's also legally required in employers. It also makes sense from a bottom line perspective. Happy, engaged employees who feel safe are going to be better employees. It's going to be a better company. It's from every perspective. It only makes sense to ensure that your workplace provides all the protections that employees need to feel safe and be productive.
And really, there's a financial implication, not just the litigation, but the amount of people who, if they feel unsafe, are taking time off. If they
immediately evident in the way they conduct themselves in the state of the job site. But yeah, the survey is certainly really helpful as you're teaching new practices and new protocols, that sort of thing.
We're just wanting you to maybe consider some additional tool resources that can be implemented within your workplace to really understand what is happening. We might perceive it as safe, but to our employees, if our employees have a misunderstanding where there's a gap, well, we could close it. Maria Fernanda, I'd love to turn to you now, and if you can tell us a little bit from your lens and perspective, working with migrant and immigrant laborers, what would moving beyond compliance look like to you, so that one, you're also not only seeing employees safe, but employers recognize the value of those that they're providing.
Yes. First of all, I want to invite all of employers to have resources in Spanish. As I said a minute ago, one of the first barriers the Hispanic or Mexican workers face is their papers or their immigrant status, but also the language. Sometimes we receive cases in the Mexican consulate, workers that have accidents or injuries because they don't know how to read in English or they don't receive any resources in Spanish. And that's a little bit sad because their accidents sometimes they don't have any part of their bodies or stuff like that. And I would like to invite all the employers to have resources in Spanish. If you don't have any idea of how to start, you can reach the consulate. We have a lot of organizations that can work with that. And also, I would like to talk about the importance of all of the Hispanic workers. We know that sometimes we didn't recognize all the work that they do, but they're here. And they're one of the most important forces of work here in the US. I don't have any numbers of impact, but I think we need to see them and not just about their papers or the language. It's just about seeing that they're there and they have some necessities too.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Maria Fernanda. So turning to you, Anita, same question. We just love for you to be able to paint a picture for us, right? It's almost like a wish list. Working with employers, knowing what employees need, knowing some of the challenges and barriers that they might face regarding safety. What could an employer do to start moving in the direction of being more than just compliant, really creating a workplace safety that is not only the culture, but also the conditions that would be beyond safe?
Well, I think we need to have very open and consistent ongoing conversations about what that means to an employee. I mean, we can define it. We're sitting up here and defining what we think what it is, but we need to ask our employees what that means to them. And having those very candid conversations, what does that mean to them? What does that look like to them? And I think, whether it's reporting an injury, whether it's reporting harassment, do we have protocols? Do we have a process? Like I said, a lot of us either come from some really large corporations. Utah's so impressive in regards to the range of business that we have. And, from small business to huge corporations. And if you don't know that information, again, if you're in a role of leadership, you don't have that information, please, I urge you to find that information so that you can trickle that information down to every position or any role of leadership so that can trickle down to every individual in an individual contributor role. They need to know, what is my business? What is the company that I work for? What does safety, how do they care about? Because that's what it comes down to, is how do you care about me as an individual? It can seem like, oh, this is, come on, like, are we getting to a sentimental, emotional level? Maybe a little bit. Because at the end of the day, a lot of us, work is our livelihood. For many of us, if we don't work, we don't survive. And so at a very personal level, it is very personal. And so I think we need to get back to having conversations with our employees and asking them, what does that look like to you? And ensuring that protocol or process, does that speak to our employees? Does that speak to Maria, to Thomas, to John, to Elizabeth, to whomever, Jose, is the messaging correct? And is it speaking to them in their language and to their level of understanding? Because sometimes we're speaking at this level, and maybe, our employees are speaking at that level, but maybe not. So be considerate also to their understanding so they get the process. So I think it just comes back to very basics and having that human conversation.
Thanks so much, Anita. So let me just ask the audience here for a moment, just to make this relevant for you as well. Raise your hand. How many of you have ever worked in a company or organization where you truly believe that they value you, they saw you, they cared about you? Raise your hands. And it's around almost all the hands up. Raise your hands if you have worked at a company or organization where you truly felt that company did not care about you. Look around, almost every hand went up. Raise your hand if you want to be the type of company leader that cares about her employees. Every hand goes up, right? So that again is what we're trying to establish here, this understanding of what questions have we not asked, what practices have we not implemented, what could we do to go a little bit deeper, a little bit further in making sure that people who are engaging within our workforce are safe physically, safe emotionally, safe, right, in all of the various ways in which we've defined today. Are there any questions from the audience? We've got a couple of others, but I'd love to make sure that we reserve time for you all. Thank you so much. We can hear you. Wait, pause with that. Can we hear her in the back? Not at all. Okay, give me just 1 second.
We have maintenance staff that are primarily men. And then we have we have a few women going on in groups. And this I would like to find a way I could talk to them about feel safe and in their environment with the animals triggering something this about. I don't want to cause trouble when they're easy to find. But I just wanted to have a way to.
No, that's a great question. Thank you so much. So the question, just again, make sure that everyone can hear, is we've got a couple of individuals that have joined the maintenance team, women, men, and we want to make sure that we communicate to them that safety matters, but we also want to make sure that we don't bring up something that can trigger people or make it difficult for them to engage in the discussion, right? So Commissioner Monda, any suggestions there?
Sure, I think you're on the right track. If you want to have a conversation, you want to ask them, you want to make sure everybody's doing okay. Workspace, that's really important. We're going to get resources in a minute. Here's a resource, that's a resource for you. So UALD, Employment Commission, provides training and provides training resources for our employers to be able to maybe help facilitate that kind of conversation. So if you want to get on our website or give us a call, we could facilitate products and training materials for you for that sort of situation. That would be helpful.
Any other questions? Okay, so then let's turn now to the conversation about resources. Since you're already on the commission, Ron, I'd love for you to talk about the various ways in which people can build their capacity, bring your team in potentially to offer some resources, workshops. What do you do? What do you offer? And then we'll turn to my entity.
Okay, yeah. So we just talked about the UA between we offer to all employers in the state, so everyone understands the rights and responsibilities as it relates to discrimination. Another excellent resource that we offer is our consultation center that we UWASH division. Some of you probably have had experience with consultation. So in UWASH, we're going to have two sides of the house. For instance, clients are the ones who come out in response to accidents, investigator accidents, complaints, fatalities, and just program inspections. And if they see a violation of the work site, they have to sign up by law. They can't. The other side of the house is compliant with consultation, and they're the ones that are, I guess, they're the white hats in the labor commission. They come out at the employer's request, free service. They're not going to site. They're there to help the employer get up to speed to help establish that culture of safety we talked about, help get safety plans up to where they need to be. And it's an excellent service. It's free, and they're booked out, and they're very, very busy. But again, that's an excellent service. If you need them, make sure to give us a call. You belong to an excellent organization that has a lot of resources regarding workplace safety. And so I urge you to take advantage of that. So those are some areas, some ways that you can get started. You can have additional resources to us, to your organization. I encourage you to give us a call.
Thanks so much. And I will tell you that whenever I've had any types of questions, Commissioner Mon has been incredibly receptive as his team. So trust that when he says the door is open, the door truly is open to you. Maria Fernanda, what resources are there?
Thank you. Well, in the Mexican consulate, we have two principal resources. The first one is to legal advisory. We doesn't offer legal advisory directly, but we have a program that is called EHLE, and the workers came with us, and we have a little interview with them, and we have to know what are their concerns. And once we know that, we try to put them with some of our legal advisors. And the other resource is that once per year, we as Mexican government make the Labor Rights Week. This is a Mexican event across all the Mexican consulates in the US. And we do a little of activities there. We make any elements with some of our organizations. We work with the Hispanic Workers Safety Alliance. And we offer people stations. For example, during our Labor Rights Week last year, this past September, we offered two classes. One focusing in being safe with clean chemicals, and the other one on workplace safety and cooperation. And that classes were free for not only for Mexican citizens, for everyone. And that's the main resources, but that doesn't mean we don't have any other kind or type of help for Mexican or not just Mexican. If you are Hispanic, or even if you're not Hispanic, you can come to the Mexican consulate and we can work along together.
Thank you so much, Maria Fernanda. So again, just a phenomenal resource for individuals that are Spanish speaking on your teams that might be interested about what are their rights, what can they do in case there's a workplace injury, and maybe there's a language barrier, but you really want to take care of your team and you want them to know, please feel free to refer to them. All right, Anita, any resources that you want to highlight? If not, we're going to wrap it up really soon.
I think in regards to, specifically in regards to workers' compensation claims, for those of you that are, involved in regards to return to work or getting your employees back to work, whether it's a modified duty sort of situation, or just to full duty, work directly with your, the claims adjuster, claims specialist assigned to the particular claim. Your insurance carrier, a lot of insurance carriers now are offering really great resources in regards to education and workshops and trainings. So go directly to your carriers and find out what resources are available to me as an employee, an employer, as an insured, as a customer, that can be offered. We're always looking at risk in regards to, we're seeing patterns. If we're seeing a lot of repetitive motion, sort of injuries, if we're seeing repeated back injuries, we're also paying attention, at least on our end. At least a good insurance carrier should be. A good underwriter is going to be paying attention to those things. But again, the state of Utah has some incredible resources. I mean, the Utah Safety Council, I took advantage of their OSHA 10-hour training, and we'll be taking advantage of more of the resources. You have the Utah Labor Commission, incredible resources. The Mexican Consulate's office, I've been engaged with the Labor Week now since 2015. And that's just to name a few. I know that there are several of you within this audience that have been doing trainings, OSHA 30-hour trainings in Spanish, donating your time. So there's so many people connected even within this community that can be a resource to you. If you don't have a safety plan or you haven't created one, start having those discussions on how to do so.
Thanks so much, Anita. I do want to be respectful of our time and get you all out of here soon. And I do believe that Mayor Mendenhall will be joining us here for some special remarks. So we would like to close out our time by asking each of our panelists to provide you with a very brief 15-second encouragement to keep making your workplace safety a priority. So Anita, and I'm going to go with Maria Hernandez. I'm going to end with you, Commissioner Monk. Anita.
Thank you for your commitment to Utah's employees. Just continue to do the hard work and be safe.
Well, I just want to say that we can continue working with the Spanish community, with the Mexican community. If you need anything, please feel free to reach out.
So, I guess what I would leave you with is when we talk about kind of safety, talk about the culture of safety. It's doable. All right, we see so many employers in Utah that are really, really good employers when it comes to work safety. And when it comes to making sure that employees feel safe when they do the job. And so this is doable. You have the resources. You can do it. Your employees are doing it. Thanks for having us.
Thank you so very much for your time and your attention.